You are your best product, and today our guest will share expert tips on standing out and making your mark. Joining us live via Zoom is personal branding coach Cecille Rebollos. It's a beautiful day, Miss Cecille. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here. I love the energy in this room.
And Miss Cecille, we are excited to talk about personal branding. But first, how do you define this and why is it important in today's world?
All right, so personal branding, there's a lot of definition to it, but basically the definition that I really particularly like is these are all the collective emotions and memories that a person other than yourself have in relationship with you. Okay, so if I'm going to put it bluntly, personal brand is really your reputation. That's it. It's how people are experiencing you, whether from a personal front or from a professional front. And whatever that is what builds your personal brand.
Cecile, I was looking at your background. I believe in the 90s you were in different ad agencies. So just looking at the way that you have experience in terms of practically just selling brands, it feels like in today's world in particular, the term, or at least the use of personal branding, just feels so much more important with the rise of social media, with the rise of basically an online persona. Complementing what a person is in real life or away from the screen. Just how much more current is the term personal branding right now, given all these considerations and in terms of selling yourself to try and advancing for further for whatever you need to?
So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think when you talk about reputation, it's something that you already have. But it's more important now more than ever because usually the currency of, the way we deal with people, if you're an entrepreneur, even your business, is really hinged on your reputation. And it's very important also because people talk about you. Unlike before, when you have this, when people, like say, for example, you look for a job, offices or companies will go to your school, get your background, and then sit with you for an interview. These days, access to who you are, what you do, is usually through social media. And if you do not put together your own narrative as to who you are, what you can offer, what your values are, what you stand for, and what your purpose, somebody else is going to write that narrative. And that's the reason why it's very important that you are very mindful about what you put out there when it comes to your capability, your capacity, what you can offer, right, and even your value.
Yeah, I totally agree because right now social media, that's our portfolio / resume essentially already. So how can someone identify their unique value proposition when they're building their personal brand?
All right, so thank you for that question. Just to put things in context, a lot of people think that personal brand is just marketing per se, right? But when you're talking about reputation, it really has to hinge on authenticity. I know that it's kind of an overused word, and a lot of people really do not know the essence of authenticity, but this is you being real. It has to be real, it has to be you. Okay, that's one. Second, you need to be very clear as to what you would like to put out there. What is the impact or the contribution that you would like to create out there, whether it's on a personal front or on a professional front. And so when I support other people about putting together their personal brand, I usually start by asking them what their values are. What are the things that are very important to them? And when I'm talking about values, this could be values on excellence, integrity, for example, passion, compassion, kindness, things like that, and see where their strength lies. Putting it all together, also forming and being very clear, why do I do this thing? Or why do I do what I do? What is your purpose? And if you put that together, if that is very clearly communicated in the things that you say, the things that you do, and how you are also with other people, that is when people will now create a distinct definition of who you are. Does that make sense?
It reminds me of, I'm sorry to bring back your advertising background po. If there's trauma there, pasensya na po. When you talk about truth well told, I believe
Yes.
that's the McCann World Group's philosophy. It feels like it's about knowing yourself as well as making sure that you're able to communicate it properly, practically knowing the product. Again, sorry to use marketing terms here, knowing the product and then being able to present it properly. Now, we see a lot of people, we see a lot of coaches as well try to put in almost a one-size-fits-all approach into creating personal brands online in general. Do you see people trying to do this, or at least making the effort to do so? And of course, what are the common mistakes that you find that people are doing as they are trying to do all this?
Right. So truth well told is also very, very familiar because I also came from that shop. That's where I also grew up. So,
Yeah.
what are the common mistakes? So, like I mentioned, and putting things into context, no, a lot of people make a mistake that personal branding is just pure advertising, all the blows and whistles about who you are. And so, I think if there's one thing that you need to be cautious about or be very mindful is that really need to communicate the truth about you. And a lot of that sounds like it's out there, but it's really about the values that you embrace. And that will never wear off whether you are doing it from your relationship from a personal front or from a professional front. So, number one, again, like I said, you really need to be real about it, and you also have to be very clear, why am I doing this? And so that's why I like the word truth well told. So the question is, what's the truth about you? And this does not mean that you must say, for example, certain bad experiences you've had in the past. Part of being real also is, also sharing some of the difficulties that
Yeah.
you may have, because that is what makes it real for people. And when you are real at that level, the more you're able to connect because you become more relatable.
Yeah.
So that's the power of being real when it comes to personal brand.
But I feel like sometimes it is hard. It's easier said than done, right? Because especially as professionals, we don't want to share too much of our life. So how do we, I guess, balance telling too much and being real on social media?
All right. So I always tell this that you need to manage your digital footprint because this is where people will find you. That's why there's this saying that your reputation precedes you, that your personal brand precedes you, because this is where people now look for search about you, and there's a lot of judgment about you. And so that being said, I caution people that if you're going to make content, it's not just because you just want to be out there. You have to be purposeful about your content. Content that will, number one, help communicate, for example, things that you stand for. Content that will help build your reputation. Sharing, say, for example, results that you've created. Engaging people more into conversation so that they get to know also who you are, also find out what people value the most. And also content that will help you expand your circle of influence. And so circle of influence basically are all the people who talk about you. So this can be your friends, family, office mate. And so what kind of content will also help them support you so that when people ask, say, for example, about your expertise or looking for somebody who you're very good at, they also have something to talk about. And that's the reason why when you're using social media, because it's a very, very powerful tool, make sure that content is, you're very mindful about what you put out there. So make it purposeful.
Yeah, you mentioned the authenticity here a while ago, and I just want to piggyback on that a bit more because, syempre, authenticity, it feels like some people feel like they can manufacture it minsan just by siguro oversharing or overshowing, or minsan they feel that they are caught within a release schedule in terms of yung content nila just to show how authentic they are in general. But what's your advice to people who are having siguro a bit of a difficult time trying to stay true to themselves, or at least overselling yung pagiging authentic nila sa kanilang branding?
Right. I think people have this mistake that just by sharing exactly what I'm feeling right now, that's already being authentic. Okay, fine. So I think there's like a thin line also. Um, you kind of have to guard yourself and be mindful. Why am I posting this thing? Why am I sharing this? I know that I always call emotions as your truth meter. How you deal with it and what you share about it and why you share it, that where the thin line is. And say for example, if you would like to share something, how you're feeling, simply because wala lang, I just want to express this, then you will have to ask also yourself, am I just reacting to things or am I responding responsibly to what I am feeling right now? And so if you, like, I say, for example, post certain things when I'm very disappointed or frustrated about a particular service. Okay. I have to hold back and it, my anger or my frustration sometimes, and I utilize my post as number one, either a constructive post on questioning people, how come these things are happening, finding out also what people's thoughts are around this. So I allow these things, this frustration, and post something about say frustration to spark conversation.
Yeah.
And so you gather people's thoughts, how they deal about it, and so it can be a learning moment instead of just dumping how you're feeling at the moment with really no purpose. So I guess
May
that would be
purpose
more.
talaga po, and basically there it has to be well thought of. It's not just throwing stuff out there
yeah.
and hoping that it sticks. Tama po ba?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, that's correct.
So of course, when we deal with all of that, Anne, I know that you want to ask a bit more.
Yeah, I
There's
know.
just so much to consider here.
I know, I know. I was gonna ask you, Miss Cecile. Have you ever had, a client that you had to help unlearn a personal brand that they thought they should have or they thought was working for them in terms of rebranding yourself? Because they say you don't get a second chance on first impressions, right? So is this always true? And if someone needs to rebrand, how do you help them? And how do they stay true to themselves, now that they're changing their personal brand?
Right. Interestingly enough, you asked that because I've had a student or a coachee where there was some sort of she had a problem because of a certain incident like many years ago. And then when we were talking about this, she actually cried to me and she said that I don't think I want to go through this because once I go out there, they will find out what I've done in the past. And so I told her, look, this is actually the perfect moment for you to do this because when you try to, or when you intentionally want to change for good, right? Not just for the sake of advertising yourself, but there's a genuine desire to shift things for you so that you become better. You also make your relationship better. It can actually be a learning point for you and a learning point for other people. So not that you highlight that, but you utilize how are you able to overcome that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can very much relate to it. People might think, you know how powerful second chances are? And so you utilize that to tell people, look, it's okay if you made a mistake in the past. Right? And so we utilize now, okay, what were the lessons you've learned from this particular experience? And how do you want to utilize these learnings now to become better at what you do personally and professionally? So that's where you now focus your narrative.
Coach Cecile, sorry, we're running out of time in this. I wish we had a podcast instead kasi grabe. There's so much to talk about. But then right before we let you go, just really quickly, because I really enjoyed that last statement that you made. Do you feel though that dumadami na ang second chances natin dahil sa social media? Kasi napakabilis ng content generation, yung flow ng content. Dumadami na ba ang second chances sa mga tao because of how social media is?
I would say that there is an opportunity for that. There's a lot of opportunity for that. But I would also caution you, what kind of second chances are we looking for? Is it just something that's mababaw, or you're genuinely wanting to get that second chance so that you create a better impact in this world. Also make yourself better.
And with that, that philosophical note, we'll wrap things up. Coach, maraming salamat.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Personal branding coach Cecille Rebollos, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right.